Welcome back to another reading and correcting with me, Kindar, the Tiger Writes, and Ty, the Tiger Supervisor. These are where I read a chapter from one of my stories and correct it as I go. If you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube. And if you want to support me, that is on my Patreon. Today we are doing chapter 52 of The Captain's Heart. Actually, no, chapter 53. Do you always eat the same thing? Jeremy asked as Gralgiran added Mirik sauce to his tray. What do you mean? He grabbed one of the plate of rolls with Hushan and added that too. It's always meat with sauces. We are meat eaters. Earther's diet is broader, right? Yes, but there's other stuff in there that's filled with paste. Gralgiran looked at the plate he held. Durham, it's a grass, I think. Never really got into the food preparation thing. I know it's pounded and blood is added to make it into a paste. He looked over the counter. Cook, blood is used for the Durham paste, correct? If we can get it fresh, Captain, she replied. Otherwise, it's Olivan's juice. Thanks. He grabbed a glass of Asperial. So you don't only eat meat. Why not make that into a pancake? Add syrup for sweetness. You'd best ask one of the cooks. Thar did all the food preparation when I lived at home. But I named that short. It means you are really close to they are really close to you. Father or mother? Do you have coffee? Jeremy asked over the counter. The cook looked confused. He doesn't understand Earther. All I know about coffee is that it's a popular Earther drink. We don't have an equivalent. Caffeine, then? It's a mild stimulant. Do you have a medical condition I don't know about? He looked at the cook. Do you have any drinks with a stimulant? No, Captain. That would be handled by medical. No, it's just something I like to drink. It comes from a plant on Earth. I don't think you'll be able to get something like that on the ship, then. He scanned his bracelet. Unless you have a medical condition that requires stimulants, I don't think you can convince a medic to prescribe you any. Jimmy smelled the content of a glass and placed it on his tray. I'll be fine. He scanned his bracelet again. So you have to pay for the food? Jeremy indicated the bracelet as they headed for a table. No, eateries don't charge. We have to scan to keep a tally of the flow of people. It's automated administrative stuff I don't even have to look at. It's sent home with my reports and someone there looks them over. What they do with them, I don't know. He nodded to the others at the table before sitting. Jeremy took the one opposite him. Morning, he greeted them. A few replied in Earther, the others nodded. Gralgiran chuckled. They were in the middle of third shift. Am I going to need one? Yes, it's where we'll go once we're done eating. You also have to get a tablet and a collar. I'm going to need something to use for the consoles. I don't have claws, so the collar is more than a fashion thing. I know some people hook their earpiece to it, but if I'm getting one, it's got to be more. It's part of the communication equipment. It picks up our voices, which means you probably don't need it since you can't speak Kelsirian. And we should be able to find something for your typing. Cubs learn well before their claws are long enough to reach the bottom of the wells. While they ate, those on either side who spoke English, spoke Earther, asked Jeremy questions about his planet, his family, if he liked the ship. One asked how he should address him, and Jeremy didn't seem to know how to answer. I can't say I'm the engineer, right? That's Alex. That got him stares. He looked confused for a second, then his skin turned deeper pink, as it did when he was embarrassed. I can't pronounce his full name. I'm not his. I haven't even met him. Caught his breath. You should get in the habit of using people's titles, he told him. That's going to take some getting used to. Unless I was dealing with a direct superior, I've pretty much always used people's name if I knew them. Then you'll want to get used to explaining why you are using Alex and Queric's short name, which you just did. Gralgiran smiled. Alex is a dear friend. And Queric? who I consider a friend, by the way, he told the others. I am hoping to deepen the relationship we share. In this case, I use his short name as an indication of my desire to get to know him better. I know he's interested. I if I wasn't, I'd use his full name in a situation like this to avoid pressuring. You guys have an interesting social system when it comes to names. And that led to Jeremy having to explain to the others the Earther's naming system, or one of them. As he was quick to point out, just as on Kelsir, Earth had multiple cultures, not all of which used the same naming system. The fact Earthers linked their lineage to their names was the aspect Gralgiran found fascinating. The only Kelsirian culture he knew of that did that were the pirates. Jeremy's identity bracelet was the first thing they handled with a visit to the ship's general administrative office. It dealt with the duties that didn't need constant handling, of which the census was one. Instead of a clerk, Jeremy rated the administrator's service, and the male behaved like a juvenile, courting his first sex. Even after Gralgiran warned him to be professional, the man barely managed it. He even offered his short name to Jeremy. I'm sorry, Gralgiran said. Why are you sorry? Jeremy replied with a nervous chuckle. You aren't the one who was all over me like that. His blush diminished. Didn't you say they'd respect it if I told them I wasn't interested in that level of relationship? He snorted. That was beyond inappropriate. He just met you. He sighed. But, as the sole Earther representative on the ship, you have become known, and some will. Some people crave the exotic. Like you? Jeremy's smile was teasing. He laughed. No, I crave you. I've never had an interest in other species. As for the name, that was what I'm sorry about. Not everyone respects boundaries. Jeremy took his hand tentatively, then wrapped his arm around Gralgiran's. It's the arm, not the whole. And leaned into him. Well, you don't have to worry. I'm not taking him up on that offer. I'm not worried. Getting the tablet and artificial claws proved less eventful, although they drew gaze as they visited the shops, but people kept their distance. Clothing was the one thing Gralgiran hadn't considered, and Jeremy's requirement proved interesting to those who sold them. The Bane didn't have a tailor. He'd never considered he needed one, and no one happened to be related to any of the crew. The best Jeremy could get was for them to scan what he wore and have copies printed, which he was fine with. It's just clothing, he said as they left. So long as it keeps me warm in your slightly cooler temperature, I'm okay. I'll be okay. If I need something official at some point, I'm sure I can find a way to get the right schematics for a printer. Jeremy didn't get a collar. He'd been surprised the tablet didn't have a place to hold the earpiece, since collars had that, but he could carry it in his pocket. Having the earpiece molded to his ear only took a scan and a few minutes to have it printed. Then they returned home and they changed for work. Jeremy watched and blushed as they undressed and dressed again. He wanted to ask if Earthers had an aversion to seeing each other naked, but as Jeremy had said before, he wasn't a good representation of how Earthers were when it came to intimacy. They walked together to engineering, and he found he was reluctant to let his heart go. Jeremy was the one to push him away with a chuckle. We both have work to do. I'll see you at the end of the shift. He watched his heart head to the reactor, then call over to one of the technicians and force himself to head to his office, where he had administrative work of his own to do. Litamir sighed contentedly, and Gralgiran rested against him. You wouldn't think you'd be this pent up with your heart in your bed. The meeting had been accidental. Gralgiran had needed to unwind after a few hours at his desk and decided to get in some fighting. Litamir was there teaching a class. When he was done with his exercise, it had been natural for them to share a shower and each other. Jeremy isn't ready. What his people did to him has deeper claws in than I thought it would be. I thought it would. Even he seemed surprised when he pulled away. You were expecting your hero's reward? The male said with a chuckle. No, he replied, offended his friend would joke at the situation. But I did think it would be easier with him on the ship, away from them and their machinations. Littomir turned the shower on again. Do you think he'd benefit from talking with a counselor? I'm sure my sister would be fine talking with him. The psychologist is teaching him Kelsirian. Actually, no, it's not teaching. Well, implant. Implanting is Kelsirian. I'm sure that if she feels he'd benefit from counseling, she'll recommend it. He lathered the male's back. Otherwise, how is he adapting? He's fine. He finds our names interesting but confusing. Some idiot came on to him, and he's an administrator. Someone's feeling possessive? It's the lack of respect. Jeremy told him he wasn't interested, and he still said to call him such. Jeremy's just arrived, and they know that. I mean, we all had an emergency situation as an announcement of his arrival. It's not like no one talked about it. And that male isn't even giving him time to get used to us. We arrived for his ID bracelet, and immediately he's on him like they'd shared a bed for years. How did your heart take it? I seem to recall Tom mentioning something about him running away from you when things got too intense once. Twice. And he was understandingly embarrassed, but he stayed by my side. That's progress. Are you two doing anything after shift? I'm sure Lil will enjoy meeting him in a smaller setting. Maybe another time. Until he's done with the language implanting, I think it would just leaving it's not more isolated. Feeling isolated. The invitation stands whenever he's ready. Maybe something social too. We could all go swimming. Gralgiran laughed, earning himself an odd look from his friend. So he explained about Jeremy's discomfort with nudity. And that concludes chapter 53 of The Captain's Heart. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like. If you want to know when the next chapter will be up, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to read this story, it is available on Ream Story. And if you want to listen to these live, it's every Tuesday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Twitch and YouTube. Links are in the notes, and with that, I shall wish you a good day.